Hey guys, welcome back. The beginning of Halo Reach's resurgence is right around the corner, and I think it goes without saying that just about everyone is over the moon with hype. It almost seems like Halo Reach is the one Halo game that everyone loves, the one game that fans of all differing views and opinions agree is a damn good Halo game. However, that wasn't always the case, let me tell you. It might seem odd to say now, but Halo Reach was actually one of the most divisive Halo games at launch. It propelled certain communities to new heights they never thought were possible, and pushed others that were previously pioneering entire industries to the brink of death. So today, I figured the time was right to do a sort of opinion retrospective of Reach and take a look at what made it simultaneously the most loved and also hated Halo game of all time. So, you know, it's a Monday night, so let's start off on a positive note and look at what people loved so much about Halo Reach. Firstly, the campaign. Now, Reach's campaign was very tonally different to every Halo game that came before. Now, Halo has always been a power fantasy game where you play as Master Chief, literally a walking invincible tank that no Covenant warrior could ever stop. This made it really hard to portray the Covenant as the truly terrifying enemy they were, who'd pushed humanity to the brink of extinction. Well, Halo Reach changed all of that. Not only were the enemies stronger and their AI drastically improved, but the player was also nerfed. Jump height was severely reduced, and the health system from Combat Evolved made a return, meaning getting wounded during one firefight greatly weakened you for the next, so running through a horde of elites, mowing them down, was no longer a viable option. These gameplay alterations intertwined perfectly with the tone of Reach's story. For the first time ever, Halo was telling a gritty, semi-realistic war story, where no character was given the gift of plot armor, and where the hellish reality of a Covenant invasion was finally realized to its fullest potential. Reach is ultimately a story about grave loss, big and small scale. Despite everything you and your squad do and sacrifice, you ultimately fail the most important mission in this 27-year-long war, and it's a failure that affects the player in more ways than one. One of the things that people were so hyped about Reach for was the fact that for the first time ever, you were going to be fighting alongside a squad of other Spartans, and Bungie went out of their way to make every Spartan feel unique. Intelligent, empathetical, stoic, mysterious, and badass. Despite their lack of individual development, the overall theme and design of each Spartan gave people reasons to love them, and love them they absolutely did. One of the biggest misconceptions that I see nowadays with modern storytelling is that characters need to be like Rick Grimes or Peter Baelish tier deep for people to like them, but Reach just proves that that isn't the case at all. However, I think it's what Bungie did with Noble Team in the end that really cemented everyone's love for them. One of Halo's most iconic quotes is, "Spartans never die, they're just missing in action." It was a quote peddled to elevate the Spartans to almost like a state of godhood in the eyes of the player, but Reach utterly shattered this perception. Seeing characters that you'd grown attached to, Spartans that you'd grown attached to, dying was like a culture shock, and the way they died only added to this. You'd expect Spartans to go down in like a Michael Bay style blaze of glory, but the reality is, they're just as vulnerable as the rest of us. I mean, George died due to technical issues, Kat got picked off out of nowhere by one needle, Carter went down with his ship, Emil got too cocky, and Six was overwhelmed. This grounded the Spartans like nothing in Halo had ever done before, which in turn made them far more relatable. You couple that with the fact that the last one standing was literally the manifestation of you, and you have a team of heroes that feel more relatable than anything that came before, and whose loss ends up outweighing that of Reach itself. Reach's campaign was the first in the Halo series to have a real no-holds-barred story. The environmental design was gritty and dirty and perfectly realised the nightmare of a Covenant invasion from both a militaristic and a civilian perspective. The AI improvements made the Covenant infinitely more daunting, which played into the tone of the overall narrative immaculately. All in all, it's quite easy to see why people loved Reach's campaign so damn much. Reach's armor customization is, without a doubt, the best the Halo series has ever seen, and I think that goes without saying. It took everything that Halo 3 did so damn well and just expanded on it, really letting us create the Spartan of our dreams. Not only did the countless new customization options give us more creative freedom, but so did the new huge variety of armor pieces. There really was an armor piece for just about every type of Spartan you wanted to be. Do you want to be a huge, meaty, walking tank? Well, there's plenty of bulky armor pieces. What about a low-profile scout or assassin? Well, there's a ghillie hood and sniper round shoulders. Want to be a wounded ODST turned Spartan? Well, there's your robot arm and your ODST helmet. Want to be a biohazard control Spartan? Well, half the helmets have ventilation pipes, and there's a shoulder with a big fuck-off coup cry on it. Bottom line is, there's a total of 5,632 different armor setups in Reach, so the potential for creativity and player expression is pretty much as close to infinite as it can be, which is even more perfect when you consider that your Spartan that you design yourself is literally the main character in the story. Then there's the other more minor additions like armor effects and firefight voices, additions that really are the cherry on top when it comes to creating your ideal Spartan. Armor effects in particular was such a damn good idea, and I mean some of them were even like a fashion statement in game. In RuneScape, for example, you've got Fashionscape, where you can flex your wealth and your grind, and in Reach, you've got inclement weather to flex your patience of a saint for saving up 2 million goddamn credits. My god, that grind was absolutely worth it.
The first time I looked at Forge World, and I was like, oh hey, cool, that's... oh, holy, you guys did what?
I think that quote perfectly encapsulates everything that Reach's Forge and Customs did right. Just like customization, Bungie took everything people loved about Halo 3's Forge and Customs and improved them tenfold. Unlike the Forge canvases that came after, Forge World felt like far more than merely a canvas. It felt like a living world ready to be explored. It had one of the most standout identities in all of the Halo maps in history, and the way that people expressed their creativity with it was living, breathing proof of that. There's far too many to list them all off, but Reach's custom games were like nothing short of legendary. Speed Halo, Jump Rope, Hot Wheels and other insane race maps, Dino Blasters, Infection campaigns, Hot Pursuit and more. In short, what Reach did for customization, it also did for customs, and still, to this day, Forge World is worshipped as the peak Halo Forge experience for forgers of all levels of experience and skill. Now, I could have quite easily included this in the previous section, but Invasion is just too damn fucking good to not have an entire section dedicated to it. This game mode was the manifestation of so many people's dream Halo multiplayer, a massive all-out war between Spartans and elites with constantly evolving objectives, fortifications and defenses, and maps bigger than anything that we'd ever seen before, in more ways than one. A mode where teamwork was truly paramount, and where the vehicle sandbox facilitated it perfectly. The amount of fond memories created by a squad in a Falcon circling the Spire, or a team in a Rocket Hog taking on the enemy Wraith on Breakpoint, or a Scorpion squad stopping the Elite's final push to the core on Boneyard must genuinely be in the millions. And then there's all the custom maps as well. Invasion wasn't tied down to a few dev maps, it was totally customizable and editable in Forge as well. Invasion is still seen as the absolute pinnacle of an expanded big team battle. I mean, Warzone didn't even come close. Honestly, I think still to this day, one of the most requested modes that people want to see return is Invasion, and it's not hard to see why. It's everything that makes Halo so epic boiled down into a single mode that can be modified to your heart's content, and it's easily the most memorable and loved aspect of Reach's multiplayer. Please 343, bring this bad boy back in Halo Infinite. Please. Okay, so let's shift gears now and take a look at what people absolutely hated, and although it might seem like Reach was loved unconditionally given what we just talked about, I can assure you that that is absolutely not the case. Funnily enough, a lot of people, notably from the lore community, really, really do not like Reach's story. The reason being, right, the Fall of Reach novel already covered the war. This book is held sacred by a lot of people because it was commissioned and released before Combat Evolved even launched, and it was meant to be its prequel. I mean, hell, some people even read the book before they played the game, so to them, Halo was a book series first and a game series second. Now, where the issue lies is in some of the radical differences between the Fall of Reach book and Halo Reach, and also to Bungie's approach to game lore versus book lore. Now, to Bungie, game lore was always paramount, and if a game was to conflict with the book, then the game was always right. Doesn't matter when the game released and when the book released, the game was always the canon one, so I think you can see where this is going. Basically, Reach conflicted with the book in quite a few ways, some more minor, whereas others were far more major. Now, to go into all of the conflictions would frankly take way too long, but if you do want to dive into them, about 6 years ago, Halo Canon made a really good video about how Halo Reach kind of sort of fits into the novel timeline, so the link to that is in the description if you want to go check it out, but to say there were quite a few conflictions would be a bit of an understatement. The bottom line is that Bungie were quite heavy-handed when it came to overwriting the novel, and honestly, at times, it kind of felt like they almost went out of their way to do it, and given how special the book was to so many people, this rightly pissed them off, and it also muddied the canon quite badly. Now, I'm somebody who has read the book and has also played the game and loves them both. The conflictions, they do annoy me. I'm not going to say they don't, but I'm not as zealous with it as other people. I can sort of appreciate the two as standalone things, but it does make total sense why some people didn't like it. Okay, so this is the big one, and it's personally my biggest problem with Halo Reach. To say that Halo Reach's gameplay is radically different is a little bit of an understatement. Not only did Bungie try for the second time to implement a fourth element to the combat triangle, this time a much more gameplay-altering one, but they also fundamentally redesigned the way that you shoot, adding an offensive layer of RNG to every gunfight. So, let's start off with the armor abilities. Reach introduced 7 unique abilities that you could spawn with, each with a drastic gameplay effect, but it was really only 3 of them that created problems. Firstly, Armor Lock, the biggest meme of Reach, a genuinely broken ability that ruined close quarters combat and caused some really annoying unfair moments.
Suicide.
Oh, it's funny, is it?
Secondly, Jetpack, an ability that nullified height advantages and setups, 2 of the core tenets of Halo's gameplay since Combat Evolved. And thirdly, Sprint, something that destroys the flow of combat, provides a cheap get-out-of-jail-free card, and heavily damages map design, weapon design, hitbox sizes, projectile speed, and much more. Now, granted, all of these things could very easily be disabled in customs, which was a silver lining, but one that couldn't be is motherfucking Bloom. Bloom added a stupid level of randomness to every gunfight and made medium to long range weapons like the DMR and the Magnum completely useless at their effective ranges. Now, these things were highly contentious across the general community. Some people loved armor abilities, and obviously some hated them. Most people did despise Bloom, mind you, but one community who hated them all and yet were forced to use them all to their detriment was the competitive community. Now, Halo's competitive community is one of the longest running sub-communities of Halo. They've been there since literally day one, and Halo as an esport is responsible almost single-handedly for the normalization of not only console esports in the sort of general esport scene, but of esports as a whole to the general public. At its peak, Halo pros were signing 6-figure deals with Dr. Pepper, and games were being broadcasted on ESPN. And then came Reach. One of the most depressing things that I've ever experienced was watching the competitive community slowly fade away. It went from the guiding force of MLG during Halo 3 to being dropped from the circuit in Reach, relegated to tournaments being held in comic book store basements. And all of this was because of the controversial gameplay decisions made by Bungie, being forced onto a community who hated them. But not only did they hate them, they also played the game at such a high level that all the flaws and the problems with these abilities were bright as day. This made the game not only a complete chore to play, but also uninteresting to watch. Eventually 343 did step in and allow us to disable Bloom and use the settings that we wanted to use, which ended up being pretty damn good, but sadly, at that point, as good as the settings were, it was too little too late. Reach caused damage to Halo's esports community that still, to this day, they haven't quite recovered from, which I think is evidence enough for why certain people hate Reach with a burning passion. I'm going to end this section with some words from Sundance DeGiovanni, who was the co-creator of MLG. These words were said during the dark days of Reach, and they were words that we never in a million years thought we'd ever hear.
This is very important for everybody to understand. I am in no way, shape, or form saying that Halo is dead, but it's on the table and it needs to be resuscitated.
So, they are the main reasons why Halo Reach was such a divisive Halo game. Some communities were more satisfied than they could have ever hoped, while others were pushed to the brink of death. It really was an interesting game in hindsight for good and bad reasons. Be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions on Reach down below in the comments. Alrighty, I'm going to keep this outro short and sweet because this video is already much longer than I'd like it to be. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing Patreon supporters as per usual, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one.